Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week up till today has been filled with anticipation of an upcoming Apple event, AirPods, and much more. This is your news update for the week of March 14th, 2021. And the first thing is, right before making this video, Apple announced that they have added vaccination locations to Apple Maps. So you can just search for vaccines or a vaccination, and it will show up in maps as far as what is nearby and where you can get vaccinated. So this is obviously by locale. It may show in some areas more than others, and you may have a bunch or just one, but you can tap on this here and see the location, and it shows you how far it is away. So it gives you all of the information you need for that if you're looking for it. The next thing is, in case you hadn't heard, Apple discontinued the iMac Pro couple Fridays ago at this point, and iMac Pro is now available while supplies last. It was out of stock. It comes back in and out of stock, but it's only the base model, so you can't configure it or anything else, but it has the base model available until it's gone. So Apple discontinued that, and also this past Friday they discontinued the HomePod, and this one was a little bit surprising to me. The HomePod Mini is the newer addition to this, and maybe they're coming out with a HomePod 2, or maybe this just was too expensive and didn't sell well enough. This sounds much, much better than in a HomePod Mini, for example, and I hope they have another one, but you can see it says while supplies last. You can still buy them, and just select the one you want, and you can still buy them for $2.99 in the United States. So it may vary depending on where you live and depending on the store. But this one, it says sold out. And if we go to the white one, we can still buy that one. So it just depends where you live. You may or may not have available HomePods if you're looking for one. Now, as far as the March event, many people were saying that we should expect invites today. And we have not gotten any of those invites so far. So many people were saying we're going to see an Apple event on the 23rd of March. So far, there's no invites. And the funny thing is usually by 3 p.m. Eastern time at the latest, we'll see an invite, and we haven't seen that. And maybe we'll see one later this week, but Apple last year announced WWDC the previous Friday the 13th last year. It would have been the 12th. So far, we haven't seen that either. So right now we're waiting for WWDC 2021 and maybe a March event. Now, someone has said that maybe they're going to announce the March event on the 23rd for an event on the 30th. Right now, it seems nobody knows at this point, seeing how we haven't seen an invite, although it still looks like we should get some products announced in March, but we're still waiting for that. And one of those products is kind of hit or miss depending on who you ask. We have some credible information from Kang saying that we're going to see new AirPods this month, and we could see the AirPods Pro or the new AirPods, but Apple just released a new commercial about the AirPods. So that makes me think that AirPods Pro won't be replaced, but maybe we'll see AirPods 3. So according to Kang, we should see them. They could look something like this. This is from 52 Audio, and I've shown this before, but then Ming Chi Kuo says that production on them isn't starting until the third quarter of 2021. And then again today, Love to Dream has also said he has no AirPods in his dreams. So maybe we'll see AirPods, maybe we won't. Kang is a very credible source and has been very accurate, but with Ming Chi Kuo and Love to Dream saying we won't see one, maybe we'll see one, maybe we won't. It's really hard to say at this point whether or not we're going to see new AirPods, AirPods Pro, or anything else. Maybe Apple is pushing all of that information out to see where the leakers are and trying to get this sort of information leak to stop. I do have to say I miss getting surprised by Apple. So this time around, there's so much information that maybe some of it's true, maybe some of it's not. So we could see new AirPods Pro, but it looks like by the end of the year, that's very likely. AirPods 2 have been out for quite some time. So a redesign of those makes the most sense to me, with maybe AirPods Pro 2 coming in the end of this year or next year. Now, if you have a new iPhone, such as the iPhone 12, 12 mini, 12 Pro, or the iPhone 12 Pro Max, Apple is now said to be able to replace the back glass if it's damaged without replacing the entire phone. In the past, they just replaced the whole phone, give you a new one, which I sort of liked because it was shattered. AppleCare would help you cover that, or at least pay for some of that, and they'd give you a new phone and you'd have to transfer your data. Now it appears that they have in the store the chassis or the frame and the back where they can just swap out the logic board and the display in the store. So you could keep all of your data on there. They could swap those things around and then give you your phone back. So that's better in some ways, not so great in others, since they'd have to unseal and reseal the phone. So it looks like they're able to do that according to a memo that Mac Rumors was able to get their hands on. Now, according to a report from Svet Apple, they're saying that iPhone 12s are seemingly showing some discoloration. Now, I haven't seen this. This is an iPhone 12 mini, but it has the same sort of matte finish on the outside, on the aluminum, and this one being kept in a case really hasn't shown any wear, but some people are seeing what looks like a weathering, or maybe like it's been left out in the sun for a very long time, even though it hasn't. So this was kind of an interesting report that I thought was, I haven't seen this myself, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And it could be maybe moving your hand back and forth on this frame sort of wears it out more quickly than other phones. I haven't seen this, but if you've seen that, let me know in the comments below, as this is sort of a new development. I've never seen that on an iPhone. They even claim that it happened on some older iPhones, but I haven't seen that either. But if you've had that, let me know in the comments below. They show a red iPhone, as you can see here. This green one maybe is less prone to wear. Maybe it's specific colors, but we'll have to wait and see if there's additional information on that in the future. Now, when it comes to the next generation iPhone, whether that be called the iPhone 12s or the iPhone 13, every year Apple usually releases those around September or so. Before they do that, they have to get their massive supply chain in line and get everything started up as far as manufacturing goes. And Barclays has looked into this, and they've been fairly accurate on some reports before. So, for example, they were the first to say Apple would not include a charger with the 2020 iPhones. So, based on their information, they've said that the next generation iPhone will have a smaller notch. As Apple continues to sort of miniaturize all of the Face ID components, they can push it closer to the edge of the bezel, and we may see a smaller notch this year. We've heard this over and over from different people, and it seems like that's what they're seeing as well as a 120 hertz display that can vary its display rate, LTPO, and LiDAR scanners that will remain mostly in the Pro models. So some people have said they'll be in the iPhone 12 or 13 equivalent, 13 mini, 13 Pro, and Pro Max, or whatever Apple's calling this. It seems that they're only going to keep the LiDAR sensor in the Pro models. That makes a lot of sense, as that seems to be more of an augmented reality or Pro feature at this point that makes the cameras better. So maybe we'll have it in everything a little bit later, but this would stick just to the Pro models for now, according to them. I think the thing I'm looking most forward to, based off what they're saying, is an under-the-display fingerprint sensor. We've seen this on many phones, and whether or not they put that in the side bezel here on the button, where they did with the iPad Air, or under the display, I think it would be welcome. With today's current situation, wearing masks, it would make it much easier, or even if you don't wear a mask, I prefer the Touch ID sensor to the Face ID sensor. Some people do, some don't, and I just like the idea of putting my thumb down and picking up the phone, and it unlocks. So that would be really nice, whether it be under the display, on the side, but either way, it seems like this is more and more of a possibility. Some others have said this first, and now Barclays is repeating this. Now, according to Ming Chi Kuo, in 2023, he's saying that we're going to have a periscope zoom camera. Now, we've seen these on Samsung phones for a while, but Apple's apparently still working on one. Now, it was rumored for as early as this year. It seems like it's going to be a few years until we see a true zoom camera that can go further than, say, 5x with digital zoom. So maybe we'll see that in a couple of years, but that's just in early production at this point. Now, as far as iOS 14.5, well, earlier this week we had beta 4, and if we do have an Apple event as soon as the 23rd, well, I would expect a release candidate maybe at the end of this week, or maybe early next week, with the final releasing after the event. Now, if the event is pushed out, that would push out the release candidate as well, meaning maybe we'll have iOS 14.5 release candidate, which Apple used to call the GM versions, but that's the public version before they release it to the public. So they release it to developers and beta testers first, and then the public later. But maybe we'll see that on the 23rd and then a final on the 30th. So it really depends. These dates have been up in the air. Nobody is seemingly getting these accurate right now, so it seems like we may just have to wait and see what Apple does. Generally, based on what they do year after year, it would seem like we'd have an update before the end of the year. So look out for iOS 14.5, where we should have all those new features with emojis, Face ID unlock using the Apple Watch if you're wearing a mask, and much more. So hopefully we'll see that within a couple weeks, released to the public. Now, something else within iOS is Apple has agreed to allow government-approved pre-installed apps for iPhones in Russia, and possibly a section in the App Store for those apps as well. So within Russia, you may have that ability to have a separate section of Russian-specific apps. And then also, this seems like it's something Apple had to comply with their government in order to sell iPhone there. So it's kind of something we haven't seen before, and hopefully it doesn't compromise any of the security on the iPhone. Maybe they'll have separate versions for there. It's hard hard to say at this point until we see that roll out. Now, they've also been able to roll out a new sort of security update section within iOS 14.5 Beta 4, if you hadn't seen my video on that. So if you go to General and go to Software Update and turn on Automatic Updates, there's a new section that says Install Security Updates. So you can flip the switch on and possibly have separate security updates. So maybe this is part of that, or it's just something Apple's doing for future updates so they can push out security updates more quickly. Now, when it comes to an Apple event that many of us are hoping to see very soon, the thing that most people are fairly confident about as far as what to expect is a new iPad Pro with a mini LED display. Ming Chi Kuo has said this, Kang has said this, and said that the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is coming and may have exclusive features that could outsell the 11-inch. Whether that be the mini LED display or something else, we're not sure, but hopefully we'll see that very, very soon like we did last year with this iPad Pro. So the 2020 iPad Pro brought the LiDAR sensor before it came to an iPhone. Maybe it will bring something new for iPhone that we'll see later this year as well. Now, one thing I'm looking forward to most is upcoming Macs. We're really waiting for a new iMac since Apple discontinued the iMac Pro. We're waiting for new Apple Silicon. We should see an iMac very soon. So hopefully it looks something like this with a Pro Display XDR front, but containing Apple Mac components with new Apple Silicon inside. I can't wait to see one of these and use one of these, and I really think it'd be incredibly fast, especially if they're using some sort of proprietary GPU as well. So I'm looking forward to that, as well as an M1 Mac later this year as far as MacBooks that have more ports, for example, than this MacBook Pro. So extra ports, new HDMI, for example, and it's also said to have an SD card slot again. So Apple could definitely add those. There's plenty of room in these M1 Macs to add that sort of feature, so I can't wait to have an SD card back for a memory card. That's something I use all the time. I have to use a dongle for, and it would be great to see that in a 14 or 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, there's even more news about the AR or VR headset or mixed reality. Whether or not this is one or two products is really hard to say since there's mixed information about both. But according to Ming Chi Kuo, the new VR headset will have up to 15 cameras to help with tracking. This is pretty common on things like an Oculus Rift or a Vive, for example, from HTC, and we could see that for sure. That makes a lot of sense. They're also expecting it to be around $1,000 and feature high-end micro OLED displays, so that could be kind of interesting, although we'll have to see what that technology is like in the future. And finally, patently, Apple recently found a patent for a method for gaze-driven recording of video with a headset, for example. So you could be looking one direction, tell it to record, and it could record. Maybe it will lock on something, or maybe this is something entirely new. We don't really know, but it's a new patent that is talking about augmented reality or VR headsets or both. So we'll have to wait and see what comes of that. And so as far as that Apple event, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really hoping for maybe invites as soon as tomorrow. It could be next week. Maybe it's never, and they'll just release some products. But usually every year, Apple releases some sort of product in the late March timeframe. So we'll have to wait and see what they do, but I'm looking forward to whatever they have, whether that be a new HomePod, an iMac, iPad, AirPods, or maybe it could be an iPhone SE, but at this point we don't really know. Hopefully we'll see something new, and it looks like for sure though, new iPads, maybe an Apple TV. I'm looking forward to that as well. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.